Davidson, MD himself. What's up, Dr. D?
Yeah, right on, Jason. So tonight is a really exciting show. One of our, I would say, top guests, that'll be a regular for sure, is here. And Mike Sager, do you happen to be with us, sir?
I am here. After 4 years of association with you. I'm still telling you every time that it's Sager.
One of the, for sure, longest remaining pillars in Dr. D brands. Maybe even, maybe only long beats you. So Mike Sager, you have had a really interesting career in your past, and I think that is something that I want to highlight that has been really indispensable to me as someone working in the CBD, THC brand creation space. And, let's start there, because you've had a really interesting journey covering all sorts of reporting, and that has really led you and I to work together as almost partners, creating artwork and labels and copyright, logos, and just the general overall good-looking Dr. D brand together.
From the ground up. I think, maybe I'll jump in a little bit and talk about how I met you, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good way to start.
I think my son was 17 at the time, or 18. He had just turned 18, of course. And he wanted to get, I don't know, I guess he got his license at Ease MD, and then he turned me onto it, his 40-year-older dad, to go to Ease MD to get my license in California. And damn, I don't even remember what year that was anymore, 5 years ago?
Yes, it was.
But I called up to get my prescription from you, and I just thought you were the greatest character I'd ever met. I mean, I've spent 42 years now in the journalism business. Started out at the Washington Post, copy boy to cub reporter, all the way up through. I worked for Bob Woodward from Watergate fame and all that stuff. And after that, I went to Rolling Stone, and I became the drugs correspondent, succeeding Hunter Thompson.
And so,
he was
Mike,
getting old and infirm,
Mike, when you say that, I think
the next guy. So,
Mike, can you hear me?
I've been well versed in covering the drug war ever since the 80s.
Mike, can you hear me?
All kinds of, I used to live down the street from the first Normal office in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So when I met you, I thought you were just a great character, and at that time you had cornered the market in these telemedicine prescriptions in California, and really led the way. And then, so I did that story about you, which if anybody wants to see it, it's in a book called The Lonely Hedonist, which Big Jason might have put up on the site or something. But,
I did. It's in the description.
Great. So, that's the story of my first meeting with Dr. D. And what ended up happening was when he said he wanted to go and start a brand, I was like, well, I'll design it.
Yeah. Because
I had a book company and I had some artists working for me, and I'd been like in this space since the beginning.
Yeah, and I remember, Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can specifically remember the first ugly little drawings that I drew of the logo, and that was kind of working with an artist in downtown LA, DTLA. If you go downtown, they have the vape district, basically, where they have all the vape shops. So I had literally, I was new in the space as far as brand creation. So I had gone down there to source some vape cartridges and to talk to people that were selling packaging in the cannabis space. And then I ended up working with one of their artists, and the first kind of thing we drew was kind of ugly as sin. And then, we took over.
Are we allowed to say what our name for it was?
We can sure. Yeah.
Can we say the
Yeah,
PENIS
it was
word
Penis
on this
Man. The first
telecast?
logo we drew looked like it wasn't
I
pretty,
think we called
guys.
it the Penis Man or something.
Yeah, it has evolved into the Nike swoosh sign of CBD and THC brands. The Dr. D Crossman logo has come a long way.
Yeah.
And hey, Mike, I think maybe can you everyone see that our new T-shirts, right? They're right here. Boom! It looks awesome. So the Dr. D Crossman is what Mike Sager and I originally designed so many years ago now. And hey, Mike, can you maybe tell everyone what does it mean to be a drugs correspondent, right? Because so many people don't even, pay attention to the classic
I
magazine
guess in
structure.
General,
Hey,
what it
Mike.
means is that
Mike.
when I started as a young reporter at the Washington Post, there are a bunch of like Ivy League people and all these like highfalutin people and all that stuff. But I'd basically been involved with getting high since I was about 12 in 1969. I was a little hippie. I was a 13-year-old going to the Flower Festival, getting gassed,
Wow.
in the anti-war riots and all that stuff. So then I later, had long hair, played in a band, all this stuff. And so anyway, I was I grew up in Baltimore, and we used to take the bus downtown and go to the music stores and all that stuff. So when I got to the Washington Post and they had all these really smart Ivy League guys, it's sort of like our job was to report the local news, which at the time D.C. was the murder capital,
Right.
of the country.
Richmond.
And I just felt a affinity to meeting other people, sometimes in dangerous conditions, but realizing that just people are just people no matter where you go.
Right.
I've lived with a crack gang in L.A. when crack first started. I lived with young heroin addicts on the Lower East Side in New York. When ICE first came, crystal meth, I went to Hawaii where it first made its transshipment point.
Wow.
I just, through the course of the Reagan era, I was working for Rolling Stone, sort of being the opposition, covering the drug war from, the ground up. And,
Yep.
meeting, the people who were in the drug business, the dealers, the users, just sort of like never being on the, when I worked at the newspaper, I had worked on the police side, but then once I got, into the magazine world with Rolling Stone, where the rules were a little faster and looser, I just went straight to like going to the source.
Yeah.
So, basically, and there's a human face to everything and a real understanding. I mean, you can look at how the news spins out. Like the recent thing with vapes is a very interesting example. How the convolution of flavored vapes and vapes which were causing health problems, somehow became tied up together into one. Sort of like we see with the coronavirus right now. There's 160 cases of coronavirus in the country and been 11 deaths. And there's, 300 million people? So I think a lot of this has to do with, kind of understanding things from a granular level. And I think that's one thing that I brought to the enterprise with you was that on the one hand, I understand, all of these things. I mean, back in the 80s, people were talking about hemp. And, Normal, when it first started, it was all about hemp.
Yeah.
I mean, hemp was being touted as the wonder material, back in the 80s. But then what happened was it kind of got changed around. It became medical marijuana over time. But it started out with this whole notion of all the miracle things that this wondrous plant could do for us naturally. And so it's sort of like the nexus of the news and history and the product, and then the opportunity. I'm in the media, so we do a lot of designing, art. The presentation of things is important. It's all sort of an art form. So being able to bring all that together, and in the evolution of your rise through, you've been on both sides of the hemp and the THC. You've but what's most interesting about you and what I admire the most about you is, and I think something we share is, you just got out of your chair, went out, started like asking people questions and figuring it out as you went along. And, it took a lot of courage to kind of do that and keep experimenting. Like, we've gone through a lot of evolutions.
For sure.
With what we've done. It's like, what has it been, like 4 years of products?
Yeah, 4 years of products, right? And that's
I guess that kind of makes you my work wife, huh?
We're definitely married, bro. So I think that is a lot of the same things I feel, and I think it's a lot of what we saw wrong with different corporations. They didn't see the people that were part of the brands as part of the equation, the relationships and the stories that people brought.
Well, the reason it's being used is like, that's the whole thing. It's kind of like, as a reporter who like understood about doing drugs, then when I was talking about these new remedies and alternative things, and it's sort of like being able to take a new vision with new information. Like, I call it, when I teach journalism classes, I talk about suspending disbelief, which means, you're going a little bit against your societal, teachings in order to embrace some new information that's different. And I think that's exactly what CBD is. It's like a whole new way of looking at, using this plant from nature to enhance our lives and make ourselves more healthy. Right. So, and I think, that's kind of that harmonious view of natural living that CBD represents. Yeah, especially for you, where you're in the business of not prescribing things to people instead of prescribing things, which, has been the remedy thus far.
And I think that it's invaluable to have people on the team that have that on-the-ground experience, either with using CBD or cannabis in their past, because it simply gives you just a much deeper understanding of the product, of what people are looking for, of what the competition is like out there, and it really allows Mike or Mr. Sager to be almost an extension of me, and we're in designing that fluid, beautiful, clean label. And it really, at this point, allows us to, if I can get the general ethos of the new product down, he can just, do a lot without a lot of instruction. So between the two of us, Mike, we move so fast when we're unleashed. We move more rapidly than, almost any other brand that I've seen in the space.
Well, it's been nice for you. We've been in several forums now. Mm-hmm. And I think that we both kind of agree that, my company, the Sager Group, we talk about harnessing the means of production. And basically what that means is, we do it ourselves.
We don't outsource it. Everything's hands-on.
Right. And really there's a different standard of operations when, it's under your own steam for yourself. Like when we worked for the corporation, it would take weeks and weeks and weeks to get some design approved and blah, blah, blah. And then we'd have to go back and, it's all ridiculous. And we can just, this way we're harnessing the means of production. We're containing our own destiny.
And you and I both understand that, we're moving quickly. Sometimes we have to go back and fix a thing or two. But our real boon for us has been how quickly we can make the new products that are trending and, work with rapidly growing distribution channels that need new products or new labels or specific things done as far as documentation for importing or exporting products out of different countries. And, I think the future is, really bright, right? I think Mike and I have been able to work together kind of with this thought that, man, we are pretty good at what we do, and what we've created is kind of neat, and that if we just kept working on it, we had all the tools in our toolkit to really make it something special that would become, a big thing if we just stuck with it. And, that's what we've done. And we've been through, getting to know each other, that first interview, through, making money and losing money, and now really kind of coming back and seeing everything almost exponentially grow is what I would say, Mike. People just, how many doctors and other folks have now found us now? And they're just like, wow, like the nucleus you guys have is so special and so focused and so hyper trained, with that specialty to go in, and it's like whatever cannabinoid you want, whatever cannabinoid product, CBD product you want, CBG product you want, we've made it in some form or way and can pretty much, pull the trigger.
Well, it's also, you are very well learned on the literature. You know what you're doing. You've really been in this. You were like out there cloning CBD, strains before anybody. I remember it well, and I remember them at one point dying off one by one. Take a plant. Remember, after the fires hit LA where you were living.
Yeah, we have. Listen, so that'll be fun. We're about to.
That's really what all this turns on. That what product to get.
Yes.
And and all those little combinations that drive me crazy trying to proofread them, but that create a good product for your people.
Yeah, and so I think anyone that's listening now, feel free to ask questions. I think this is kind of a special group of folks here that literally, we're if you've been making brands in the cannabis space for 5 years, you're an OG or CBD space. That's how new the industry is. And for anyone that's been around that long, we are kind of the been there, done that with an interesting Rolodex. So, Mike, what are you excited about with the brand? You've been involved so intimately with it. I can tell you a couple of things that are exciting for me, but always curious to see your point of view before I jump in.
I'm a storyteller. I guess another thing I should say, if I'm supposed to say this kind of thing, is the stories I write are called, are considered sort of in the literary genre, and they have been made into movies a number of times. Boogie Nights was based on a story that I wrote.
Wow.
There's been several other ones. Right now we have a series in production about a story I did about Rick James, super freak. We were actually friends before he died. I met him at Folsom Prison when he was serving time there. But now I've wandered away. What was the question again, Doc?
Well, it's really just kind of, what are you excited about with the brand? What are some of the things you maybe are
sorry.
hoping to see?
I started talking about Rick James, so I forgot what I was going to...
Rick James is a good topic.
But what I was going to say was I deal in story arcs, the arc of a story, and how you tell a story. And, I feel like this is a great part of the Dr. D story that's happening right now. So what am I excited about? We've been making products and making products and making products, and you've been shelling out money, and you've always paid your bills, and you've been an honest guy, but business isn't always honest and doesn't always work. And now you've been down and you've come back, and now we've got the mill is turning, and the products are going out, and there's actually people, I think 1 or 2 people finally sending you money so that you can get some returns from this thing. Yeah. So that's what I'm excited about. This has been a huge journey. And, along the way, we've both learned together. I never designed one product before I met you. And you never sold one product before you met me. And we
just
both,
a lot of telemedicine.
Have learned, gone along this way, and mostly, I'll be the one to say it. It's come out of your pocket.
Yeah.
And now I'm just happy if your listeners can be happy that there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you believe in something and you keep working hard enough. And I think it's well documented that you lived in your van
Yes,
for a while.
sir.
I mean,
It was
you
pretty
were
epic.
up, you were down, but every great story has that story arc.
Yes.
Where
you know what it
boy
does,
gets
and
girl,
all I
boy
can think
loses
of my
girl, boy gets girl back. That's
Yeah.
your classic
Yeah.
storyline, and you can have that with your fortune, or but you're getting yours back, and then some, and I think it's a tribute to your work ethic.
Well, I always knew, Mike, in here how to do it. It was just a matter of time. And, when I had to do it the second time after that one group wasn't so great, I knew what I had to do. And I knew I was smart enough to know how long it was going to take and how expensive it was going to be.
I don't know what you were like at home or by yourself in your van down by the river. But you never really lost it.
Nope.
In my
there was a lot to do. I mean, we were hauling inventory all over the place.
Me. I'm not going to mention certain other people who might have driven you a little crazy, but
yeah.
I admire that.
Hey.
You're a little younger than me. I've always considered you a little, not a little brother, more of like a mentee, but also a person who's taught me a lot, which is, I think, the best mentor-mentee relationship is one that sort of flips over time and kind of rolls down the hill.
Well, yeah, it's been very interesting.
The yin and the yang changing places as it goes. I think that's the part I'm most proud of, that I'm, my Jewish ancestors would say, I'm felling for you because you're finally getting some of what's due to you.
Right.
So.
Well, I think it's going to get more fun for all of us. And, there have been so many people that have been a part of this along the way that, as things were supposed to launch in 2016, 17, people just kind of got confused or they didn't know what was going on. And now that we've really brought this full circle and it is launching, it is very curious. It's very nice to see, who is still here through the thick and thin. And it certainly shows, really, who knows how much work it takes sometimes to get these startup companies off the ground, and who have been a part of them in the past and seen the successes, and also had an appreciation of how hard it has been to get these things off the ground. I mean, Long and I have done it in the past, and when we were working the first startup company, we took successfully to six figures in not that long. I mean, it was around the clock, almost like sleeping next to the computers, building things and taking care of things. So it's a ton of work. But it's, it is all coming together. All of the computer systems, right? The Dr. D CBD website is now totally in flow state. It's working. We have multiple backup payment processors. We have an unbreakable nationwide and international supply chain, which is really quite impressive. And, our distribution team is global. So we are getting orders from everywhere, from Japan to New Zealand to Europe to, I think Mexico is opening up. So there's a ton of interest in the brand. And there is no other secret to that sauce than time, money, and a lot of kind of heart and good people. So yeah, Mike, we're excited. We have some teammates joining us all over the country over the next week. We have hundreds and thousands of people to call and email back. And the nice part about the product line that we have going,
it's so crazy, man. I mean, the scale of things, it's just, it's kind of like, I wish you would take over my book company next. And
so that's the nice thing is as we scale and really reach back out to our old community.
Sell books. It would be great.
I mean, my hope, Mike, right, is honestly that we're able to generate enough revenue that you and I can spend a bunch more time together, because there is literally so much stuff to do, whether it's content-wise or product-wise, that we know that if we roll out, we'll make money and sell, and probably be better and cheaper for Americans to buy than a lot of other stuff, right? A lot of what people forget is that, by not letting myself be shelled out by corporate America and keeping my brand fully, controlled by myself, is that guys like Mike and I and Jason and Long and Mark and Ryan and all the other kids and guys and girls that help us do this, and Beth, and there's so many people, Amy. We're able to actually, we can really make some money and make our prices really affordable for Americans and do the hemp plant justice, which is exactly what you said earlier. It is like everyone's medicine. You can grow it everywhere. I think what a lot of people forget is the growing things. Gardening is probably the #1 hobby in America. If you Google hobbies for Americans. So, I mean, there's so much to do. We're breeding things. We could even have a Dr. D grow your own hemp club. Make your own CBD tinctures at home. There's so many things that we can do that are fun.
Well, that would be a fun idea.
Yeah, for sure. What's going on, Jason?
All the golden olders can have a hobby.
That's right.
We have a question for Mike. Did Mike also star in Boogie Nights as well as?
I was wearing a wig at the time, but no, I did not.
Okay.
That's unfortunate, Mike.
I'll set a serious question. What are some of the other things that you've written that people would maybe know? Or be interested in?
Other magazines, books.
Didn't you write a recent article on Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones?
Yeah, that's I've been doing a lot of profiling lately as the magazine industry has changed. I guess go to my website, mikesager.com, and check out some of the books there. There's
Sager spelled
7 collections of stories, everything from living with a 600-pound man to staying with the Aryan nations to living with a crack gang. There's a bunch of crime stories, including the John Holmes. It's called The Devil and John Holmes, and that's what became Boogie Nights, and also the movie Wonderland.
So this is what Dr. D Brand's all about.
Became the movie Veronica Guerin, which was starring Cate Blanchett, and was about an Irish detective, a woman who took on the mob, a true story. Also, like I said, I got the story of Rick James, Super Freak, and it's kind of a life story of him and his legal battles. And didn't turn off my phone, did I? And so Scary Monsters and Super Freaks is maybe a good place for people to start if they like crime stuff, if they like more like going and living in other worlds, living with a crack gang. I remember another story called The Secret Life of a Beautiful Woman, where I basically spent 4 months hanging out with this woman who became known as Brooke Burke, one of the big celebrity spokesmodels. I did another story about an ugly guy, what it was like to live in Hollywood and just be an ugly person. So there's a whole range of different things. Revenge of the Donut Boys is another good book. And then Lonely Hedonist is with the Dr. D story is a great story. That has a story of my 3 days and nights with Peter Dinklage. It has a story of going to Montana to find dinosaurs. And it has also an early story about artisanal hash oil makers. I guess they were before hash oil became legal. It was all being done in backyards and industrial facilities all around California. So I took about 1.5 years to kind of get into the underground, and I ended up at this thing called this competition in Vegas. In fact, I remember it was a great weekend called the Secret Cup, and where all the best artisanal hash oil makers in the country came and stayed in this big mansion and basically smoked a bunch of hash oil for 3 days. So that's all in The Lonely Hedonist with the Dr. D story. And thanks for asking.
It's Mike, I think it's really neat that there's also actually some folks in the audience watching that are part of the team putting the beautiful artwork right into action and actually filling those bottles and applying those labels, heat sealing them up packing them up and sending them out to our fulfillment center, right? So I think that's pretty cool because, you know, Mike and I spend a lot of time living in a virtual world almost, where we, for months, when we're launching a new SKU with whatever it may be, are only really talking in die lines and 3D mock-ups and things like that. So, you know, when Mike gets, you know, a goodie bag of products in the mail 3 months after, 4 months after maybe we started a new SKU, it's kind of awesome because
Swag!
we actually.
I also have to say, there's been times when one of the facilities you use to manufacture your products was within driving distance of my house, and you know, I got to go there and see them putting the labels on the bottles, putting the, you know, tincture into the bottles, all of these things that we had made 3D models of and to make pictures of and labels and done all this stuff. And then there's actual people and machines on this conveyor belt. Yeah. And, you know, it was really, you know, dope. You know, I think the gummy bear maker is the gummy maker was one of the favorites that I saw. And,
there are 3 gummy bear machines.
You know, going
now.
What you were saying and taking it to the next level, just seeing the actual products being made, you know, it was a real trip for me.
And for us, it's been a pretty nice, because we've literally been growing almost at the same pace as the manufacturing arms in the industry. So, you know, Sager and I were lucky enough to be in San Diego next to multiple major CBD pioneering manufacturing plants and labs where folks were mixing this, and we really almost just became part of the team at that lab, and then other labs.
Not only that, but
across the country.
Talk about a granular level. One day I walked in and you were making the CBD dog biscuits. Yeah, you were personally making the biscuits in an oven, loading the trays. You know, these biscuits were made by Dr. D himself.
Well, the beautiful part,
you know, that's understanding your business at a granular level, where you start understanding what the customer wants, because, you know, you understand what it should be because you've been there.
That's right. So it's so funny, Mike, when people ask me, they're like, what sort of doctor are you, right? I'm like, well, I got a PhD in the cannabis and hemp industry while my other friends were finishing their residency, right? So what I did was, you know, I did my year of surgical residency. Then I did, 2 full years as a research fellow in the emergency department at the University of Arizona, researching things like septic shock, ventilator-associated pneumonias, live animal research with a retinal oximeter, measuring oxygen levels in the back of the retina. I mean, really cool stuff, early interventions in septic shock in the ER. And then after that, right, I had the opportunity to go into business for myself and develop this technology. And it was really from basically, I know how to work as a resident, right, as a surgical resident, and the hours it takes to become...
You're still working the same hours,
That's
Doc.
right.
That's the only
So
problem.
instead of working in the hospital, what I began to do is I began to work those same resident sort of hours, either studying the products, working as a doctor, or working in the different labs. And when I mean work in the labs, I would go into these and I would help out however I could, right? I would handle clients. So, you know, not only was I making my products, but I've basically helped consult on any sort of CBD product that's on the market today. Just because I was there to help take so many different meetings in so many different labs. And yeah, so when you talk about just having that experience of being there and going from making the label and having all the different dye lines on hand and in our little ecosystem, there's just not many people that have done what we've done through so many segments of the industry, whether it's growing a plant in a THC environment or working in a CBD lab, mixing it all up, or going to the educational conferences where we learn more stuff about what to make in the lab. And then, actually being on the streets, selling the products is a whole nother ballgame. And that's really what's gotten us a lot of success, is because people want to join the team, right? They actually see someone that's in charge of their own company.
You just love sitting down and talking about the different, various aspects of a product. I mean, you kind of remind me of me, how I am in the writing world. We also produce films now and and publish books and do audio stuff. And so, I'm constantly sitting down with an artist who has an idea and kind of kicking it around with them. And it's great for the mind.
It really is.
It's
it is
the exchange of ideas,
adventure.
and it's the aggregated learning of having your hands in all of those ideas within the same space over so much of time. The formulative years of all this stuff. I mean, I remember over the years the differences just being in California of the various things like getting a medical license, 10 years ago. And then it used to be drive to LA, go down to Fairfax, and there's this Russian lady with these cat eye glasses who was a physician, and she was giving out these prescriptions. It was $250 to go. It was almost like you were going to a back alley,
no longer, sir.
Clinic or something,
We are
and
back.
then today it's just this thing. You pick up your phone, you telemedicine, you get your number. It's all tidy. It's very cool. It's interesting to see. I mean, I guess in the same way that I can say I started out writing at the Washington Post and they had typewriters. And, they had pneumatic tubes and hot type and deaf people typing and making the type stuff. And, it was and now it's a world of computers. And it's almost like the same thing in the industry now that we're dealing with, whether it's THC, CBD, it's all sort of part of a whole thing of this cannabis plant that, in some circles can be lionized, in other circles can be demonized, but really is just a plant, a plant naturally grown, on the earth for humans to have. So
and also for you and I, this is a never-ending journey into all these interesting folks that we love hanging out with and talking to. So I look forward to, hanging out with you online and chatting more and getting to know you more and bringing on some of these other really interesting people that we kind of enjoy talking to that have done work examine how cannabis has interacted with human DNA and how there was basically selection and, impacts on the plant and on humans based on
I think
where
also,
we carried
if
it.
I can interrupt you, the stuff that I've discussed with you before, you've told me about the various interactions of CBD and other, vitamins, minerals, supplements, not to sound like I'm pushing all that stuff because you don't sell that right now.
Right.
But just the idea that, you've sort of done the research, it's kind of really fascinating because as a reporter, it's really interesting to hear, how molecules, affect your body in such astounding ways.
It is a cool story, Mike. I mean, just to be telling the story and living in it as we go to these research conferences and then are able to come back and, now that this operation is smooth, we can learn something and have that product done within, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, right? Going out to the website. And that's powerful when you think about otherwise new sorts of drugs having to go through a 17-year sort of from, learning about it to studying it to being on shelf for people to try. And that's the real beauty of what we're doing. And I'm excited about this and then excited about dropping in the THC brand behind everything. That'll be available in dispensaries with sorts of products that are social, but also therapeutic that are THC rich. And that'll be another whole part of the Dr. D brand that people can trust and find the same little Crossman logo on as we begin to roll that out.
Crossman, I need my new T-shirt, Doc.
It'll be in the box. So
Hey, listen, man, I stayed about 28 minutes longer than I was supposed to.
I know, you got to go.
I'm supposed to make another call, so I'm going to let you take
Rock
the
it on,
people
rock
home.
on, Mike.
But I guess I'll either see you down here or I'll be up there. I want to see your new pad in Vegas.
Yeah.
So I hope to see you in person soon. In the meanwhile, I have several emails from you to attend to.
Let's do some more art. We'll see you in San Diego. Maybe next week we'll be down there.
Huge Japanese order out so that maybe Dr. D can make a few shekels.
That's right, guys. The more dough we make, the more fun it gets for everyone, because that's what we're about.
All right, bro.
Yep.
Thank you as always.
Yeah, bro.
Thanks, Mike.
Good, Mike.
Thank
you so much.
Big Jason, I can't wait to actually meet you in person.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But I might need a step ladder, but it will be fine.
Jason is a 7 foot tall NBA basketball player.
I'll talk to you
for
guys
those
soon.
that don't know.
All right, guys.
Dr. D.
All right, bro. Peace, Mike. Peace, Sager.
We'll see you guys
Oh, you
next.
said it right.
I did say it right. All right, everyone at
Sager.
home, watch and stay tuned. Jason and I are going to break it down.
Yeah, make sure you like, share, and follow. We'll talk to you next time.